Hey everyone, and welcome back to Wishbone Football. I am Chad Wishbone, and welcome to episode 3. And we have taken a week off, and that was really for layout purposes for me. I wanted to kind of get more into the full ebbs and flows of what the show each week is going to evolve around and how it's going to kind of roll out and look like. So I think I've gotten that down now. I'm recording this on March the 19th, but this is actually a day late. I wanted to get it out yesterday on the 18th, but that's okay because I was able to sprinkle in a couple of things that have taken place today that we might not have been able to talk about. So we had two massive trades in the NFL that went through and one that did not. So I wanted to get into those. So last Monday, it was agreed that the Baltimore Ravens would send 2 first-round draft picks to the Las Vegas Raiders in exchange for Maxx Crosby. Huge trade, huge implications. We sort of expected this. Crosby is at the tail end of his prime, you can say. And they are sort of hitting the reset button with drafting Fernando Mendoza and Ashton Genty. We can get into that a little bit later. But it was 3 days later that the Raiders put out a statement that the Ravens have backed out of the trade. It was announced that Maxx Crosby failed the physical with the Ravens. However, the issue is that it seems to be a cop-out to me. Honestly, before the Ravens agreed to the trade, there would have been health and physical documents that would have been reviewed. And I would think that would be the case for any trade, especially one knowing what Maxx Crosby's injury history is. It's not huge, but he did have, I believe it was an ACL injury this year that he's coming back from. Everything points to him being ready to roll for summer camp, but the Ravens ultimately backed out of the trade. Now, this trade was announced last Monday during the legal tampering period, which is a wonderful made-up 48 hours in which the NFL says that every agent can seek a new deal for their client in a 48-hour window prior to the league year starting, which would have been last Wednesday, March the 11th or 12th. And during that time, this trade was announced. So during this trade and during these negotiations, Maxx Crosby flies to Baltimore, gets into the facility, does the physical, and it was ultimately withdrawn. The claim, the Ravens had backed out of it. And the health aspect of it and the injury aspect of it, there had to have been documents, reports that the Ravens could have acquired to know exactly the health of Maxx Crosby's knee. I mean, it shouldn't have been a shock that he would have been able to fail a physical, which honestly I don't disagree with, because I don't think that he's able to run a 40-yard dash right now or run a 3-cone drill. But I think that you're not making this trade for him to pass a physical right now. You're making this trade for him to get healthy and help your football team starting in September. Now, the reason I think it's a bit of a cop-out for me is why a day after the failed trade, the Ravens made the announcement to sign Trey Hendrickson from the Cincinnati Bengals. on a 4-year, $112 million deal. Did the Ravens get cold feet? Did they realize that they could get Trey Hendrickson for cap space only instead of 2 first round draft picks? And with the Ravens picking up 14th next month in Pittsburgh, the draft, they realize that they can have a very good edge rusher via free agency and did not need to go out and trade for it. That's where my sort of suspicion comes in, is I believe that the Ravens did this thinking that the Trey Hendrickson market was going to be so hot that they might not have been able to price themselves into it. So rather than trying to bring him in via free agency, let's turn our sights to who people may not be looking at, and that was Maxx Crosby, but acquiring him via trade. And it just seems funny to me. It feels off, I should say. That's more how I feel about it. Because he's now back in the Raiders facility, Crosby is, doing workouts, getting ready, and he's came out and said that he's committed to the Raiders. And I mean, I don't disagree with that. He's genuinely loved playing with the Raiders. We can see that, we know that, but I mean, he probably felt like he was helping the Raiders by going to the Ravens. But we'll leave that the way that it is. That is still a fun one for me to look at, and I'll definitely keep an eye on if there is any more fallout from that. Finally, the second trade involved my Buffalo Bills acquiring wide receiver DJ Moore from the Chicago Bears. Bills sent their second round draft pick this year to Chicago and received DJ Moore in a 5th round. Their 5th round being this year in 2026. A part of the trade, the Bills will be guaranteeing $15.5 million of Moore's 2028 base salary, because at this point his 2026 and 2027 are already guaranteed. And the Bills restructured it to have 2 void years put on the end of the contract, because he is set to become a free agent at the end of 2029. So the Bills put on 2 void years of 2030 and 2031. Now, based on the price that the Bills paid for DJ Moore, I wanted to bring that up in comparison of what the Dolphins just got for Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle, they're basically best and most consistent wide receiver outside of Tyreek Hill. Don't get me wrong. Tyreek Hill has missed a lot of time, but Waddle has been their most consistent and best wide receiver for the last couple of years. And so the Broncos paid a 1st round, a 3rd, and a 4th in 2026 for Jalen Waddle. So think about that. That's massive. A 1st, a 3rd, and a 4th just to acquire a wide receiver. And really, that's a steal when you get into what his what his salary cap number is. It's a great deal, but it's way too much draft capital. The Broncos, I believe, only have 4 or 5 picks this year now left. It's not a lot, and for a team that's kind of in ready to win mode in the next year or two, prior to them having to pay Bo Nix a whole boatload of money. They've kind of got to be ready to go now, and the draft is what's going to help them do that. I'm not saying that Waddle would not help, but I'm just saying that it was a lot. It's a lot. I would say a first, maybe a first. So you think about that in comparison to what the Bills paid for DJ Moore. Obviously, I'll put both wide receivers on a similar tier. Waddle is better and could be a number one in Denver versus DJ Moore, who is basically coming in as a de facto number one in Buffalo, along with Shakir, but they play different roles, obviously. One thing that when I was looking through the cap hit for both DJ Moore and Jalen Waddle, something really stood out to me as to how and what sort of makes sense for me. So it's eerily similar numbers when you get into it. So between Jalen Waddle and DJ Moore. So Waddle's cap hit for 2026 is $5 million. DJ Moore is $6.75 million. 2027, Waddle is $27 million. Moore is $28.9 million. Waddle in 2028 is $30 million. DJ Moore is $28.9 million. And Jalen Waddle will be a free agent in the end of 2028. And DJ Moore will still be under contract in 2029 for $28.9 million. Plus a void year of $4.4 million for DJ Moore. Now, it's interesting in that respect. Obviously, these void years could get pushed up and more dead cap can be pushed off into the future. But very similar, like the Bills pay a second round pick for a very good wide receiver who is actually under contract for one additional more year. Now, mind you, the Waddle cap situation does kind of help the Broncos as it is right now. But when it comes down to it, you're a 1, a 3, and a 4 is a lot to give up in one draft. I could see maybe the 1 being next year and the 4 being this year, and then your third pick in 2027 draft. But no, like you're giving up draft assets that are huge for this year. It doesn't sit right with me. Now, it was rumored back at the trade deadline during the 2025 season, whenever that is, end of November, that the Bills were trying to acquire Jalen Waddle from the Miami Dolphins. And there was a first-round draft pick that allegedly was talked about, but the rumor is that the Bills did not want to pay their 2026 first-rounder, but they were willing to give up their 2027 first-rounder. So, I mean, if you think about it, the Dolphins did what they should have done. They they did not take the offer that was in front of them at the trade deadline, and ultimately got a much better deal from the Denver Broncos for Waddle in the offseason. First, a third, and a fourth. And speaking of draft picks, we are officially 5 weeks tonight until the first round of the NFL draft. I have a bit of an update as someone I had talked about in the last episode, Caleb Banks. It has been reported that he suffered a broken foot at the NFL Combine. So my question will be, does his draft stock fall? I have seen Caleb Banks mocked a lot in the first round, mid first round, 10 to 20. But does he slide to a late first, early second based on the broken foot? Now, it is a broken foot. I mean, it's not the worst thing that a football player can get. I think it would be more of a concern, and there would be a bigger slide if it was any sort of a tendon issue, ACL, MCL, PCL sort of thing. I would love the Buffalo Bills to take someone like this in the first round. Just to have an absolute game wrecker in the middle of your defensive line. And because of the new defensive coordinator in Buffalo, the Bills are going to be moving to a true 3-4 or a surface 5, if you want to call it that. And he would be a stud on the defensive line for the Buffalo Bills. Now, I've got a couple of things to get you out of here on. The College Sports Commission have provided us an update on the NIL deals as of the end of February. So, as of the end of February, we have 21,025 deals that have cleared, with a total value of these deals being $166.5 million. So, I wanted to get into that number a little bit more and try and get more of a breakdown of that. This is giving us an average NIL deal of $7,900 per. And we can think about that in two different ways, because we know how crazy it is for what the NIL deals are for high-end blue blood college quarterbacks. And I'm privy to it. I know, I fully admit, being a Longhorn fan, it's ridiculous. I read somewhere today that because Arch Manning just signed a new NIL deal with Google, and he has a projected NIL earning this year of $5.9 million. And that's just absolutely insane. Now, that'll be broken up into several NIL deals. Google is one, and he's got several others. I think he's got a Topps one or a Panini one as well. So, yeah, so this 21,000 deals, $166 million, average deal of $7,900. It is worth noting that there are a total of 711 deals that have not cleared NIL Go. And what I mean by NIL Go is a portal. Essentially, it is a portal that agents or agents for the team or the player themselves can all go on, log their NIL information into, and it is either approved or denied by the NCAA. And for that to take place, you have to put all the financial information, what you're doing for this brand, all put it into their system. Mostly every NIL deal is reviewed and updated and approved. Excuse me, approved in 24 hours. However, like I said, 711 have not went through. Now, I gave you the average because it's kind of very stark. The average, like I said, was $7,900 for approved deals. The total value of the deals not cleared is $29,300,000. And so what's interesting to note is that the average value of the not cleared deal is just over $41,000. So that kind of tells me something. It kind of tells me that the NCAA is spending more time reviewing what looks like higher value and more lucrative deals. I don't know if there's anything there to look into, but what we'll do is we will get a monthly update on these as they continue to roll out. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention here as well is this data that we're going based off is from the end of February. So February 28th is when they put this together. I don't believe that this is going to be dealing with any new transfers or any new college football players, because it's typically not until early mid-March that the new season starts for them. So, and when I say season, I mean like they're always training, they're always doing something football related all season long. But it's not until spring where, like, let's get you into the building, let's get practicing, let's start doing some stuff that is more than just maybe meetings, game scripts, not even game scripts, books, playbooks, things like that. So I wouldn't be shocked if we get to the first week of April and we're getting the new information that includes March, that the number actually looks higher because of how much more that they might be doing. I know that Texas had just launched a new NIL deal with Kevin Durant. So they're actually doing a Kevin Durant x Texas collaboration in which Kevin Durant is basically creating an NIL fund for Texas specific players. And so details of those might not have even went through the NIL Go portal yet. Just something to keep an eye on as we move here over the next couple of weeks. Finally, we have some notable pro days coming up on campuses across the country. Starting tomorrow, Friday, March 20th, we have BYU, Michigan, Vanderbilt. I think that Diego Pavia will be back up to 6 feet tall when he's measured on campus, because we all know that ruler is probably a little bit bigger in Vanderbilt than it is at the NFL Combine. March 22nd is Baylor, which is kind of weird to me to have it on a Sunday. I actually reached out to the team for clarification on that. They've had an Instagram post that confirmed it. I was a little bit taken back, honestly, with it being on a Sunday. I wouldn't have expected that. I know that the NFL and football world runs 24/7, and it just seemed off to me. So I reached out to Baylor. We'll see if they get back to me, or we'll just see on Sunday when they're running drills. And speaking of drills, I wanted to direct you guys to my Instagram page. I'm trying to amalgamate and put together as much pro day footage as I can on my Instagram page, pulling it from different places, teams specifically. I'm trying to get more reporters who are sort of on the ground there to get the footage from, but not everyone is just willy-nilly with it like the teams are. So something I'm working for. Now, back to the pro days. So March 23rd, so next Monday, LSU, Miami, North Carolina. March 24th, Auburn, UConn, Iowa State, Notre Dame, and Texas. March 25th, Alabama, Nebraska, Ohio State, Texas A&M, UCF. March 26th, Florida, TCU, Texas Tech. March 27th is Florida State, Houston, Mississippi State. March 31st is Buffalo and Tennessee. And then finally, we have April the 1st, which is Indiana. And, I mean, everyone will be at Indiana wanting to watch Fernando Mendoza throw the football. I really do think that he is an elite prospect. He has shown exactly what he can do. He's not going to be this amazing Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson type player, but he is going to be a good runner, but an even better pocket passer. And honestly, I think if we were to be 3 or 4 more years into Drake May's career, I would probably give a comp to Fernando Mendoza to being Drake May. Drake May is a very good passer and can be a good runner, but not an elite runner. But you don't need that always. You just need him to be mobile enough to extend plays and pick up the odd third and 4 with his legs, to be honest. And I'm not going to lie, I've got family who are diehard Raiders fans and have been for all of their life. And I think that they should be very excited about Fernando Mendoza. Now, one thing that we were talking about in our last episode is the targeting calls with the NCAA. And we actually have an update on that as of today. It was announced that the NCAA has announced their targeting rules has passed the vote, and they are making the amendment to what we had talked about. And so that is that the first targeting call on a player, they can play the next game regardless of which half it takes place in. The second targeting call would be disqualification for the first half of the next game. And the third targeting call would be disqualification for the entire next game. So it's what they've done is they've lessened the first one and made the third one worse. But like I said in the last episode, it's not overly important because you're not seeing a whole lot of second and third targeting calls. Yes, you are seeing the odd first one for most players, but it's not a rampant issue. They think that the targeting calls have worked, they've lessened them, and now they get to tweak their wordings and their suspensions for the penalties for all three, the first, second, and the third. So I think it's a good thing. It will keep players on the field if and when they do have those. I don't want to call them freak accidents, but like they can be. You're running at a guy 15 miles an hour, ready to tackle him, and the offensive player makes a move that you didn't think he was going to do. He puts his head closer to your head that you wanted it to be, and that happens. Unfortunately, it's a part of football. But the good thing is yes, you will be ejected from the game when that happens, but you will be able to return for the next game. Like I had mentioned before, I'm hoping that you guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram. Instagram, like I said, I'm trying to amalgamate and put together as much pro day footage as I can. Get that, guys, out to you as soon as it's happening or as close to. My Instagram, you can find me at WishboneChad. And my Twitter is WishboneFB. Guys, I want to take the time to thank you again for checking me out, giving me a listen. This is episode 3, and this is Wishbone Football. Thank you.